But I've learned that almost everything that we do in business, if we think the opposite, we can almost always say, we can find a way to formulate what we want to do. It could be a campaign, it could be a project. But if we turn it upside down, it's not that we're doing it wrong. We're just doing it so different that it gets people's attention. It's really about conversation. It's about learning about the other side. But for the young people, you have to budget time, schedule time to practice the language skills because you're going to need them. Otherwise, you're going to be sputtering and stuttering when it comes time to have the actual meeting with the client.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Walk to Wealth podcast. If you're tuning in on YouTube or any of the podcast directories, or if you're tuning in live with us here on Facebook today, oh my goodness, we're in for a good one. And I want you guys to make sure to do us a favor and give us a follow or subscribe because I don't want you to miss out on any of the amazing guests that I'm bringing on this year. We haven't missed yet and we're not going to miss anytime soon. So let's get right into this interview. In today's episode, we got Tulio Pena, a good friend of mine. Tulio, for anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to get to know you yet, to get to meet you yet, tell us your elevator pitch. Who are you and what do you do?
I'm a husband, a father of 4 awesome kids in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I'm a realtor out here with Keller Williams Partners. Run a team that is growing, that I'm very proud of. Very active in several communities. As you and I have met through the Pivot Shift community of James Shaw, a wonderful mastermind group that's helped me grow. But that's just a little bit about me. My kids are all into basketball and volleyball. They keep us busy as heck. And my team, we run very efficiently. We're very regimented. And we've had some really awesome success over the last several years. And even when times are a little tougher right now in 2023, I know your interview of me, but that's just a little bit about who I am and who my team.
Yeah, so let's hop in a time machine, man. Let's go back some years. Take us back to little Tulio. What was the topic of money like growing up? What was the topic of wealth and all this stuff that you got going on? Like, was that kind of cultivated in your earlier years? Like, what was it like growing up as a child?
Not so much, surprisingly. Little Tulio was Tulito. That was who Tulio was, Juanito. So that's who I was when I was a little kid. My nickname was Tulito. And, I did grow up with loving parents who did have high expectations of myself and my brother. And my father was a psychiatrist. He was a medical doctor. And I grew up in Tampa, Florida. And I was very fortunate. The school system there wasn't the best at the time. So they always had us in private schools. And they did put me in a school that was very challenging. If you ever heard of Jesuit high schools, it's run by the Jesuit priests, a Catholic group that's a specialty group that really focuses on education. And at the time, boy, your grades were posted on a wall. And you knew where you stood at that high school. And I was happy to be in the middle amongst a group of kids like that. It was all doctors and lawyers and business owners, high-level business owners, kids that went to this high school. And I was blessed that my parents had the wherewithal to put me through that. And that's really kind of, I think, where things started for me to get me off on the right foot to strive to I never say excellence, but strive to work harder, learn more, apply myself. And I think the competitive edge that school brought has ridden through till now. I'm turning 51 this year.
Yeah, amazing. So Tulio, move us a little bit along the journey. So I know you're in real estate now. So you're in this high school and you're in the school system where it's like super competitive. A lot of very successful individuals bring their kids to these schools, and you're very fortunate to be amongst one of the students there. When does this idea of becoming a business owner come into play, getting into real estate? When does that all start to formulate?
I'd say really real estate wasn't even on my mind at the time. Yeah. And I think that's an important thing to share with you, John, and others. Okay. Your path will probably change a few times. What you study in college is usually not what you end up doing for a profession, unless you study to be a doctor or an engineer or a nurse or something like that, where you tend to stay in that because you put 4, 8, 12 years into the education. Once you've done that, you're not likely going to change at that point. All right. So, but when I was in high school, first thing I did was I was like, all right, I want a job where I could enjoy myself. I can be outside and maybe look at girls. All right. So I got a job as a lifeguard. And then I realized pretty quickly that it was boring as heck. But I could get more hours and make more money if I also learned how to teach swimming lessons. So I got the water safety instructor certification from the Red Cross, started teaching swimming lessons. So I went from working 4 hours a day in the afternoons at the pool to work in the mornings too. And this was more of a money thing. I was like, I started to enjoy making money.
Yeah.
And you got paid more if you were certified in teaching swimming. Then I started to learn that I could get more money if I took on the harder classes, like the adult and, in all honesty, kids with mental health issues, autistic children, stuff like that. And I really enjoyed doing it. And I found a passion in doing that. And I did that through high school and college. And my parents didn't even know I was working at 3 different pools while I was at the University of Florida, making money doing this. So I really enjoyed doing that. I realized I had a knack for it. I even said, hey, if I go through college, finish college, do an internship, and it all falls apart, I'm going to move back to Florida, see if my father will help fund an aquatics school that I could start up and find other people who love teaching swimming. I actually had parents come to me while I was at the YMCA in Gainesville, Florida. I was a Gator, all right? And they'd say, we really enjoy the way you taught. Would you do private lessons for my kids at our house? And maybe we could allow one other kid, a neighbor kid in and split it up. I said, sure. They go, what would you charge? At the time I was at $45 for 45 minutes. And they were like, okay. I was like 17, riding on my bike from house to house, doing swimming lessons. I'd have all the toys that you throw in the pool for kids to dive for and stuff. And I was making $45 an hour back in 1992 on my bicycle in Gainesville, Florida. And that was the first business I had. Okay. And then one physician actually whose wife hired me came home to eat lunch one day and watched me teach. He's like, hey, you're pretty good at this. How about if I help you? I go, okay. And he goes, how can I help you? And I said, how about if we make a flyer and put it in your office? He goes, well, I have 3 offices. He was a pediatrician. And we made a flyer that said, waterproof your child. And he put it in all his clinics. I started getting calls after calls after calls. And he endorsed me to people as well and spoke highly of me. So that was my first real business. And it was almost straight cash. Yeah. And it was door-to-door private swimming lessons to children. And in many cases, children that were autistic as well. So that was something that I'll never forget. And I loved doing. And other than, an $80 certification from the Red Cross in 1991, that was my fallback business because I loved it. Yeah. Okay. So that's where it started.
Man, yeah, I love your story, man, because it's a classic example of when a student is ready, the teacher will show, and you didn't really know where it was all going to play out. But it's like you started with one thing and then another opportunity presented itself and you took that opportunity, and then another opportunity presented itself and you took that opportunity as well, and you just kept on going, and it turned into this old little thing, which is amazing. And it's very similar to kind of my story because, being in the Pivot Shift group, it all started. I joined the group because Donna Gilbert, one of our good friends, she told us about, at least me in my office while I was still focused on real estate, she mentioned a couple links. And it was during an Ignite training. That's just a real estate training that we have in our office for anyone that doesn't know. And she dropped a couple links. At that time, I didn't know who Donna was. And I was like, okay. So I saved them just in case I ever would have needed them. That was like in maybe October of 2021 now. And then a couple months after that, I was like, man, I need to really change up my morning routine. Like that lady Donna, she was talking about some masterminds and some calls and stuff like that. And then I started hopping on some of these calls in the Pivot Shift group. And I started getting some, I guess, notoriety because during Chris Hurley's script call, they would always do like Question Fridays. And so I'm in there and I'm just typing up the question. And I was talking about this at a conference I spoke at literally yesterday from the day we were recording this. I used to type up all the chats because they used to have the questions for Fridays. And instead of just saving the chat and uploading it to the Facebook group, which was what everyone else was doing, I would put it onto a Google Doc, take out all the little banter in between, format it a little bit, and then upload it into the Facebook group. And then every Fridays, everyone's like, yo, where's John at? Where's John Mendez? And then from there, I was on Early Birds one day, and Lee had asked me to teach a class because I posted some quick Facebook tips. And it was like, for me, it was simple tips. And I didn't think anything of it. Prior to that, I posted maybe like 6 photos in the past 6 years leading up to that. Like I was a pretty private person when it came to social media. And then as you probably already know, I taught that first class back before family reunion last year. had like 440 people sign up. And then it's like, boom, the man, the myth, the legend, John Mendez came out of nowhere. But it's all from things that I never foresaw. Now I've actually just soft launched my course. I just got another student in there literally yesterday. So now I have 8 students in my course going through, but it's like something I would have never envisioned for myself had I not just taken that step forward. And similar to your story, you were just taking that step forward and then opportunity started presenting itself. So walk us through a little bit further now. So you had this, private swimming lesson, teaching, coaching thing that you had going on, and you started almost like joint venturing essentially with this guy who had owned a couple offices. From there, where does your story go from there? So you graduate college, you move back home. Where does it begin from going from there? Like, what does your story go?
So from there, actually, when I finished the University of Florida, I had to do an internship to finish. My last 4 months was for a grade. I had to go somewhere. And I decided I'm going to go someplace completely the opposite. And one thing you're going to hear about Tulio, and you might have gotten this gist about me, but I've learned that almost everything that we do in business, if we think the opposite, we can almost always say, we can find a way to formulate what we want to do. It could be a campaign, it could be a project. But if we turn it upside down, it's not that we're doing it wrong. We're just doing it so different that it gets people's attention. Okay. So a lot of things I've done in life, when I look back at it, I've realized I kind of do the opposite, or I do it upside down, and I find success. So the next thing I had to do in life was finish school. So I came out to Colorado. This was like the internet was in its infancy. Finding an internship, you went to like a poster board and you looked for flyers at your college to see where there's internships posted, literally on flyers. And I saw this thing that said Colorado Springs, Colorado. And my degree was in exercise physiology, which most people who do that don't make a whole lot of money after. It's like a glorified PE degree that hopefully you can use somewhere in the world that someone will pay you. And I wanted to be a physical therapist. I didn't have the grades for it. So I studied exercise physiology, and I got some certifications to be able to use some rehab machines that University of Florida did the research for. So I was able to get certified in them. I found a medical clinic, an orthopedic rehab clinic here in Colorado Springs that had all those machines. And they needed someone certified to run them. And they just wanted to hire a college kid who was certified to run them to put patients through after they saw their chiropractor. So I got an internship under a chiropractor, came out here and worked for 4 months and, did what I thought I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I really, really wasn't enjoying it. When you think of helping people rehab from an injury, you think that they're going to be motivated to get better. Most of them hate you. They think you are the torture guy. And although I motivated, I pushed them, I had fun doing it. They didn't.
Yeah.
It was a one-way street. And I ended up doing that. I ended up working on the floor in a rehab clinic, doing that for about 3 years. And that I wasn't enjoying my work at all. During that time, I bought a home and I met a realtor, obviously, and that's where real estate started to intrigue me, but that's not the story yet.
Okay.
The doctor I worked for was a chiropractor, and he had some really incredible soft tissue skills, not just rack 'em, crack 'em chiropractic, like neck and back adjustments.
Yeah.
He developed a soft tissue treatment for carpal tunnel syndrome, tennis elbow, shoulder impingement, sciatica, plantar fasciitis, all these soft tissue injuries. And he developed a system for treating them that was reproducible, that he could teach all around the world. And I helped him develop a course. And I ended up being the marketing guy and the sales guy for his course. We ended up marketing this throughout the US and Canada and then beyond. And now he's got practitioners, hundreds of thousands of them doing this technique. But I helped sell his seminars all over the country, literally phone call by phone call by phone call, to chiropractors, osteopaths, physical therapists, athletic trainers, massage therapists, people who worked with their hands. That's what I did. And I really honed my salesmanship skills selling to doctors and therapists over the phone. So that was the next step. And it wasn't easy. That was a hard thing to sell. It was an expensive class. It was like $2,000 at a time when people are used to paying $200 for a continuing education class. So that was the second step. And then Dr. Leahy called me back one day and he said, Tulio, I have another project. I want to start taking all these doctors that we've trained I want to put them in corporations that have a lot of workplace injuries. I want to help reduce the spend on workman's compensation in the area of musculoskeletal injuries by 70% in the U.S. And I said, all right, let's do it. So that was the next project. Now, all these companies were hit, saved them 80% on their workers' compensation spend. And then it exploded from there. I started going to OSHA conferences that were attended by health and safety engineers. And I ended up becoming a subject matter expert in the area of soft tissue injuries in the workplace. I would travel the US and Canada and present in front of large groups of very boring people that were engineers in the area of industry. But I would make my presentation exciting, fun, funny, and chock full of stats. So that was the next step. I ended up doing that for about 4 years. Then I decided I'm tired of living on the road. And that's when I started doing real estate. And I had a real estate license that I got before that last stint. So, but that's what got my sales chops and my presentation skills really honed and primed for real estate.
Yeah, and that's I didn't know that about you. So that's super interesting to hear, and it makes sense because you come out very well composed and you speak very well. So it's let me ask you. So you're doing all this, sales and stuff like that. And they always say that your 100th sales call will teach you more than 100 sales books will, right? So it's during your time honing your sales skill, my first sales job-ish on the phone was K Jewelers. So I was calling in people, and actually, I still remember my biggest client that I closed at K Jewelers came from a random cold call. And I was pretty much just calling people. They had an iPad with a bunch of people in their CRM, and I was just cold calling people. And then one guy, I almost lost him. And I was telling him about our deal that was coming up, and then I mentioned that we had 30% off code. He was like, wait, one more time? And I said, yeah, we have 30% off code. He was like, oh, I actually been looking to get myself a Cuban link chain. And I was like, really? It would be probably the perfect time. And we went through there. He ended up buying 2 chains. I think it came out to $4,200 or something like that off a random cold call, which for me, that was the best feeling ever. I still have a photo. It's actually on my photo wall here of me, the day I'm sitting like this, just posing with my, just smiling, cheesing. And I still remember it was yesterday, man, when I saw that. He walked out. I did one of those in my head, the little celebration dances in my head. But, I'm still at work, so I have to maintain my composure. But, man, I was excited. And I think the general manager for the district was there that day, too, because we were understaffed. So that was a great day for me. But for you, what were some of the best lessons and skills that you learned from cold calling, from, your time at selling these $2,000 webinars? It was what you and I have learned today through when we practice our dialogues and our conversations. It's exactly that. I think a lot of people, when they are in the world of sales and they hear the word scripts, they think it's a bad word. It's actually almost become a bad word in our own arena right now for some weird reason. But it's really about conversations. It's about learning about the other side. And the more I did it, the more I started to realize that if I ask questions and try to discover what the other side really needs, then I can taper my conversation, my solutions to them. So when I would call these healthcare practitioners, first of all, you had to win the gatekeeper over. Yeah. And I've been blessed with a voice that somehow works. But once I got the doctor on the phone, I learned to call a lot around 11:30, 11:45 as well. And I would drop the name of the doctor I worked for. Instead of just saying, this is Tulio Pena from ART Seminars, I would say, hey, I'm calling on behalf of Dr. Mike Leahy. I'm his assistant, and I'm calling for Dr. Such and Such. That got me the meeting. And so it just dropped the whole salesman thing. It was the assistant to the doctor. And I just broke down the barrier really quick. That took a few tests of trying to figure out how to get through the gatekeeper. Once I got through the gatekeeper, then it became much more simple. And I would ask the doctor, well, tell me a little bit about your practice. How do you practice? What is it that you do? How are your outcomes? Are you happy with your outcomes? Would you like to receive more patients and actually get them through and get them done and get referrals from them? Or are you more the type of doc that likes to see the same people over and over and over again and sell them life plans? Most of them would say, I would rather do what I studied to do, to heal people. Yeah.
And I said, well, that's what this is about. Instead of just doing rack'em crack'em chiropractic where it feels good for about an hour, this is addressing the soft tissues, the muscles, the ligaments, the tendons, the nerve, and the fascia, and it clears out the scar tissue so that people can actually move function well, not have tingling, numbness, stabbing, aching anymore, and get back to work and get back to life. And then you get their friends. How does that sound versus just selling the 24 treatment program and having the people come and just do neck and back adjustments for the rest of your life? And they go, that's why I became a doctor. I go, okay, let's keep talking then. But it was asking them those type of probing questions about why did they become a doctor in the first place? And then selling them on a change, a paradigm shift in their practice. And that felt good and honorable to me.
Yeah, I love that, man, because it's one of those things that I've been doing a lot of marketing stuff, research and work. And one of the things that you need to have when you're creating content or whatever it is you have to know that ideal result, that end goal that the people want. And you also have to understand where they're currently at. And then there's a drawing that I usually draw, and it's like a guy, he's standing at the edge of a cliff, and he has problems, roadblocks, and questions that he has that's holding him back. And at the other side is another cliff, and at the end of the cliff, it's the results. And we're the bridge. We're the bridge. Our content is the bridge, whatever it may be. And you were able to pretty much find the end result and then sell the transformation. You weren't selling the bridge, you were selling the end result, which made everything so much easier. But it just took a lot of probing questions. You had to figure out what it was that they actually wanted. And that's for across industry. It doesn't matter if we're like in real estate or in selling, health programs or webinars or whatever it may be. It's like sales is sales. And you have to figure out what that person wants before you could pitch them on anything. And if you don't have what their ideal result is, then don't sell them. That's because, you could, use sales skills to maybe get them to say yes. But as you said, that isn't honorable. That's not going to make you feel good at the end of the day, selling someone what they don't need. And if you just so happen to actually have what they need, man, then it becomes a field day. Then it becomes fun. I want to ask you one more quick question before we segue into the next part of the conversation. You mentioned too that you became a subject matter expert at a pretty early age. Like, what did that feel like? Because like for me, I kind of did the same thing. We have very similar, journeys, just like in different arenas. And so like for me with the social media marketing stuff, like, as I said, I never expected to be someone that people sought after and people looked up to in this space. Because as I said myself, I barely like social media. I honestly, leading up to getting my real estate license for that year, I got licensed September 2021. That January, I deleted all my social media platforms. And the only reason I re-downloaded them was because I knew I would have to market myself online. That's literally the only reason. Now it's someone where people come to for help on this stuff. So what did it feel like for you being a subject matter expert and a thought leader in an industry where most people are probably way older than you?
Yeah, and most people were, and they were very specialized, and they were mostly engineers, industrial engineers, industrial hygienists, people who had, very much were about the metrics within the corporate industry. And I was just this guy who kind of worked around all the rules always. Even when I taught swimming lessons, instead of just working at the YMCA or the local rec center, which I did, it's where I got my foundation, I found a way to make more money working for myself. I was getting paid like $11 an hour or less at teaching there. I was like, I could make $45 an hour doing it on my own. I could do it based on my own parameters. And so that was step number one. And then working for the doctor, we were selling something no one ever sold before. He created it. So we were and then when we took it to the corporate world, we were selling something no one even knew what it was. So we had to really paint the picture. But once again, we had to demonstrate it once. And then we were fortunate to have another company say, we'll try it. And then another company say, we'll try it. And by the time I left that company, we had 250 corporations using our system of on-site healthcare with our physicians on-site treating employees' elbows, backs, knees, and stuff like that, to the point that I had toured 250 Pepsi plants, General Electric facilities, Halliburton plants, all these mega corporations with 500 to 5,000 employees at them. I have physically been there. I had pictures of me teaching stretching classes to employees and developed multiple initiatives at these corporations that we just had like a book of examples of what we've done. And now I have 250 people who confided in me with their corporate outcomes where they got bonuses and their companies, their employees got bonuses for having less injuries. They loved us for doing what we did. And it just became a point where I learned so much about the health and safety engineers' goals, the company's goals, the employees appreciated the offering that we did. And I got to see how the U.S. is made. because these were manufacturing plants. I was boots on the ground, working with these people and ergonomists, the people who make sure you're sitting right, making sure your computers are the right height. I learned so much by doing it. Also studied a great deal about every state's OSHA guidelines, so that when I went to present, I was presenting to their state's guidelines on injuries. But all of that came together that, God, by year 3, when I was standing up in front of places, people started introducing me going, and Tulio's a subject matter expert in the area of musculoskeletal injury and prevention in the workplace. And I was like, I guess that's what I am.
And that's amazing. And I can only imagine what that was like, been speaking in front of all these different people in these corporations, these big time companies. It's an exhilarating feeling, to say the least, man, just being able to present and know that you're teaching something that is valuable to other people. So now your time comes to an end there, and now you start getting into real estate, which is how we came across and how our paths were able to connect. You are now a 7-figure millionaire real estate agent. You have a successful team. You've been doing this running the game for years now. So what was that journey like? Because you happen to go from one industry where you're a subject matter expert, and now you're getting into real estate, which is an entirely different industry. But the entrepreneurial spirit, you had a track history already of success. So what was it like transitioning? What made you make the jump? What was it like during that time period where it's like, man, I had enough of this, on to my new endeavor?
So I got my license in 1998, and I did real estate part-time for several years. When I went full-time, it was when I made my decision. I said, I was waking up in a hotel every day, and I didn't even know what city in the nation I was in. And I would say to myself, I have no idea where I am. When the lights are still out, didn't turn the night light on in the hotel, I go, at least I know that my story is going to be the same, no matter who I'm presenting to. And I said, no, I can't keep doing this. I was married at the time. My wife was pregnant. I said, once we have a kid, I can't live like this anymore. I have 4 kids now. So that was when I've had the talk with my wife and said, it's time for me to settle down and figure out this real estate thing from a full-time standpoint. I had done, part-time work, family and friends type stuff. And I came to the realization that it was time to make a go for it. And I said, but if I quit the other job, this is a real go. This is not just a go for it. It's I must succeed. Okay. I was making a good income, just shy of $200,000 a year at the other job with benefits. And I was saying goodbye completely to it. That's a scary jump, especially when you have a pregnant wife, and you got, bills to cover every month, the mortgage, car payments, all that type of stuff. So, made the jump though. And one of the first things I did, a friend of mine, was working a model home in a really nice part of Colorado Springs. And he admitted he wasn't covering the model home very well. He was there during the busiest hours on the weekends and stuff like that. But during the week, he wasn't there. And he got a lot of traffic, people just walking away when no one was there. So he said, would you cover it when I'm not there? His deal was only he could sell those homes up. And he said, if they don't want these, you can sell them anything else. So I would get like 3 to 8 leads a day in a nice neighborhood, and all these little pieces of paper people filled out. They put their information, their email, their phone number. Are they or are they not working with a realtor? And what price range they're shopping in. And that was at the time, it was like $350,000 to $500,000 neighborhood. That was respectable back then. Still is, but back then that was high end in Colorado Springs. And I was like, man, if someone wanted to buy a $200,000 or $250,000, I was like, well, I'll take them. I'll take anybody. So I just took those lead sheets and I would start dialing when it was quiet. And I would introduce myself, ask you what they thought of the home they toured. And many of them thought it was nice, but it just the neighborhood didn't work for us, or there's not room for the floor plan we want in there. And then I would say, so are you only looking for this build, or are you open to anything else? We're open to anything else. Are you open to resales? Yes, we are. Wonderful. Well, I can help you there. And you noted that you're not working with anyone yet. So could we meet? And I would schedule a meeting with them, do a buyer consult with them. And I usually would get 1 to 2 new clients almost a day with that gig.
Jeez.
But that was, it was just calling. And, I was blessed because of my history of calling, not having fear, asking questions, and just asking if they'd meet with me. That we would go through the process of buying a home if they were a first-time home buyer, or a refresher. If they haven't done it in a while, we'd get together, do that for 20 minutes to 45 minutes, depending on how much time they needed to learn the process of buying. get them with a lender. Many times I'd get them on the phone right then with a lender to get pre-qualified. And we would go right after that to look at houses. And that's really how I got started. That deal came to an end. I ended up working with another builder after that for a little while. Then I transitioned into traditional resale. The internet was still in its infancy. We're advertising in those magazines in the grocery store that you look at and go, who advertises in those anymore? That's how we started for me, posting ads in those magazines and working the leads I got from those when my deal with the builders dried up for a while. So that was the early stages of Tulio.
Yeah. So you mentioned too about the beauty of the being able to speak on the phones. And for people my age, right, we grew up at a time where it's texting. Like, don't call me, text me. Like, I'm busy. Just shoot me a text, shoot me a DM. So that's how like our generation's methods of communication. For anyone that has that fear of rejection or isn't used to getting on the phone, because I said, whether it's real estate, whatever sales it is, like getting on the phone, being able to speak to one, hear a voice or put a name to a face, even if it's like hopping on a Zoom call, whatever it may be, being able to call and speak to a person. I mean, there's so much rapport that you could build, so much more success that you could find than if you were to send DMs. So it's like, for anyone that has that fear, what advice would you give them so they can start getting comfortable on the phones and comfortable speaking one-on-one to people?
Number one, practice. Okay, I know you've done it. You know I do it. We're parts of numerous role play and dialogue practice groups. I run one. I started mine because most of my friends that are in them are on the East Coast, and they're doing these really early ones, okay, which I love. And I listen to on replay and I learn from. But I was like, you know what? I need to do this for my own team. My team needed to improve their own conversion skills. So my coach said, Tulio, what do you need to do? And I said, I need to coach them up. And she goes, you're right. So I started coaching my own team. Then I opened it up to my office on Zoom. Then I opened it up to the other Keller Williams in Colorado Springs. Then I opened it up nationally. It's called Word Wizards. We do it on Facebook and Zoom, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And we practice together. So someone like John can jump on and bring his real estate objections that clients or other realtors or an appraiser or someone in the business might throw at you. And then we practice together in a place that's safe and comfortable. But it has to be with regularity so that these situations, when they arise, you're not a deer in the headlights. You know what to say. You know where to go. You know what questions to ask to get the other side to come to the conclusion that where they go, yeah, that makes sense. And it's not always I won. It's we came to an agreement. We came to something that's fair. We met in the middle. We came to some place where both sides are happy. Okay. But you started with how do we get young people to quit doing the texting thing, you know? And the texting thing can be good. It can be good to get the conversation started, but you're not going to sell a house over text. You can't. You have to, at some point, get the people talking. So maybe the written text, I'll just say maybe because I do this, maybe the first way to get them chatting. Then you transition into sending them a video where they see you. And now they know you're a real person and you're not a bot. And then the next step is on a video saying, hey guys, it's time for us to talk. We have been chatting back and forth, but you can't buy a house this way. We need to chat. Yeah. Okay. So let's schedule a time. When's good for you? 2:00 today or 10 a.m. tomorrow so that we can actually have a conversation and get you truly moving towards buying a house. Okay. But for the young people, you have to budget time, schedule time to practice the language skills because you're going to need them. Otherwise, you're going to be sputtering and stuttering when it comes time to have the actual meeting with the client.
100%, man. It's one of those things where it's like you never see any basketball player that's good not practice free throws. Why? Because when it's crunch time, when it's 2-minute drill and you got only a couple seconds left on the clock, you got to hit your free throws. And that's exactly what scripts and role playing does. If you have the gift of gab, if you have a good personality, if you're a natural born salesman, as we like to say, you could kind of bypass a lot of it. But when it comes down to crunch time, you got to get on the phone and you get asked a difficult question. And for anyone that's not in real estate, we're helping someone buy a house, that's just high ticket sales, very high ticket sales. Any high ticket sales, you got to hop on a phone call. There's no high ticket sales program that I ever inquired about or seen or any realtor that's at least that's good, as I said, that doesn't hop on a call to make sure there's a mutually beneficial outcome for both the person that's in charge of the call, and the client or prospect. So it's like being able to get on these calls, and there's a lot of like negative connotation, as you know, behind the word scripts, and you mentioned it earlier as well. And I think one of the main issues that people see with scripts, regardless of whether it's real estate or entrepreneurship or whatever, it's people think that it doesn't come off authentic, but it's like the point of scripts is to practice words that worked, then cater it to your personality, then cater it to your style of language. For example, like for me, while I was focused on real estate, one of the things that I switched up, it's like I stopped saying buyer consult and started saying strategy session, because before I got into real estate, I never used the word consultation. Like I never talked to any of my friends, I got a consultation today. Like honestly, personally, and that's just me. But consultation was a script that we practiced. And as I looked at the script, I followed to the T. And then as I got comfortable with it, once I went over it enough time, then it's like, all right, how can I word this so that John comes across and not a robot? So that's how you do it. A lot of people try to come up with their own scripts and not try it improving. Learn the scripts, memorize it, then add the you. And we talk about it all the times in Pivot. It's like, don't build on the innovation and the entrepreneur side of things. That's built on the proven and the tried, and then add the flavor, right? Don't get fancy before you know that it works. Know that it works, then get fancy, right? And so when it comes to scripts and conversations, for anyone that's, looking to start helping people, whether it's buying a house or high ticket sales, whatever it may be, like how do you get good at the close? Because that's one thing. You mentioned conversion and helping your teams convert. You can get on the phone with 100 people, but if none of them want to talk to you because you can't ask that question, because you can't, guide them to that next step, which is actually working with you, whatever it may be. Like, how do you get good at that? Because you've done now close tons of conversation. You help tons of people get better at scripts and role play. It's like, what's it take to be a closer, to be someone that can close?
Sure. Working together, working with others is key, number one. Number two is knowing, like we have a guy on my team who is probably the most regimented lead genner on my team. He is literally the guy who dials, works through it, talks to the person, dials, works through it, talks to the next one, boom, 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 boom. But he wasn't closing. He was doing one form of a close. He was getting meetings. Many of them were on Zoom, but he wasn't getting the agency signed by the buyer or the seller. Or he did get it, but they never sold or they never bought. So he wasn't getting to the final portion of things. And we actually had a recent coaching session, he and I, and we walked through where he was at. And what it really came down to in the end was he wasn't asking for the close. He was like just becoming a friend to the people. Saying, when you're ready to do this, I'm here for you, type of a thing. Instead of really defining what their timeline is, buckling them down and asking, okay, now the next natural step is to get together at my office and go through the process. And I understand your lease ends on this date. Are you ready to purchase within a month of that lease ending so that you can make a smooth transition into your next home? Yes or no? And if you find out, yes, that's what we like to do. Wonderful. That's my goal for you. Let's do that. Let's get you talking to the lender. But instead of the ambiguous thing, and when you leave it light and ambiguous, a lot of these people, this guy on my teams, were just renewing their lease instead, because he wasn't truly helping them with what they originally wanted, to buy the house. Okay? So it really comes down to asking. I was so joyed today listening to him lead gen. And that's where I was in the office. I was lead genning. He was behind me lead genning. And I heard him asking. And he got told no a lot. That's okay. Yeah, I think that the fear of the no is what scares a lot of people out of the world of sales. But you and I know that a no is not a no. It's usually a not now. And it's also it's leading you one more step to the yes. The more times he asked,
I don't know.
Right. The more times he asked, the more times he would get closer to the person saying, yes, we're ready. Then he could, or I could, or you could sit down with a serious buyer. But if you never get down to asking the question, even with the people that you're showing houses to, and they're not writing an offer. I've had the situation before where I said, all right, guys, we've seen them all. It's time to write an offer on something. Where are you at? And just asking them, where are you at? And then you're getting the answer. Well, gosh, we're just not finding the perfect thing. Well, do you feel that anything's really perfect? in life. Okay. I mean, the people who build a home 2 weeks later call me and tell me that something's not perfect. And that's a brand new thing. They built it. They designed it. And then they're like, we wish we did this. Okay. So there's no perfect. Is 85% good enough? I mean, you guys are 30 years old. Are you going to die in this home? No, we're here for 4 years. Do you have to have the perfect house then? Because no one does. And that's when, you realize you have to have that talk, and it teaches you might have to have that talk earlier on so that people realize there is no perfect. And if that's what you're seeking, you're never going to find it. So, but it's asking those questions to people to get them into reality land. That's where people start to give up the third car garage. Like, we don't really need the fireplace, or we don't have to have a whole half acre. A quarter's really big enough. We don't have to have the view of the mountains. We see the mountains every time we walk to the mailbox and drive to the grocery store. Those type people start to concede and give up certain things once they start looking. But you have to ask how much is that still important to you? Are the bedroom size, the kitchen, and the flow on the main level more important now than seeing the mountains out the west view? And yeah, it is. Is the school district still the more important thing than having the yard as big as you originally thought? Yeah, it is. Okay, great. Let's cross those two things off. And that way we can get more focused on what's real. And sometimes that's what it takes, is narrowing it down, but also asking them, letting them know that they've seen it all, or hopefully you don't have to show them that many, but getting them into reality.
Man, Tulio, I love that. I got from just that little portion right there, I got that. Have the confidence to ask them the difficult question so that they could get to the result that they originally told you they wanted. And being able to say like, hey, isn't this what you actually wanted? Of course, there's a bunch of cherries on top and nothing's ever perfect, man. That applies to everything in life, man. So many people get too caught up on the ideal, so caught up on the perfect. And when all the, I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and it's like the unfortunate reality, it doesn't exist in anything in life, though, whether it's a spouse, whether that's a house, whether that's a car, whether that's a job, whether that's a business. It's like, man, life doesn't work that way. And I personally feel like perfection it's a man-made concept, man. It's something that we cling on to so that we can have something to strive for. And it's like, it really can hinder a lot of people from actually making actual progress. So I love that you brought that up, man. And Tulio, you dropped a tons of amazing nuggets. You have an awesome story. Where can we connect with you? Where can we find you at? We want to get more of Tulio.
I'm on Facebook. I've got, that Tulio Pena, Realtor with Keller Williams Partners is probably the easiest one. Like you, I've hit the 5,000 friends on my regular page. Facebook doesn't let you have more than 5,000 on your personal page, but I've got that. I've got the Pena Team Facebook page. I'm on Instagram as well. If you'd like to practice your language skills, Word Wizards, find us on Facebook. On the Facebook page, there's a link to how to get to the Zoom side of things. That's where the real magic happens. I don't mean to say magic as a pun on Word Wizards, but that's where you really get better by working together with a group of people who are totally cool and want to help you. And there's people who have been doing it a long time. And I'm not the only host. I actually have 4 other hosts from the various parts of the country that have different personality types. And it's really fun. I'm on the show even when they're the host because I want to practice. I could run it every day of the week, but then I'm listening to other people's script. I'm giving scenarios and I'm not practicing myself. So I've chosen to have other hosts, and I get in the audience and I'm right side by side with everybody else, helping everybody grow. So Word Wizards on Facebook and Zoom. Zoom's the best, but you can watch all the replays on Facebook.
Amazing. So now it's time for our famous 5, how we end every single podcast episode. Question number 1, what is the most impactful lesson you've learned in life?
Well, that's a good question. Habits, having strong habits in whatever you're doing, whatever you want it to be excellent at, whatever you want to strive at, is set your habits and build your systems and own your morning. And all that comes together because I own my morning. I start with my workout. You see me doing it. I'm always working out when I'm on the Pivot Shift show. I'm surrounding myself with amazing people by starting my day listening to and taking part in a mastermind group of people that I respect and I want to be like and who can learn from me as well. Okay. I move on from that to having a healthy breakfast. I move on from that to practicing my dialogues with others in my profession. I move on from that to 3 hours of working the phones, lead generating. Everyone on my team does the same thing with accountability. By noon, the world starts giving back to me by planting those seeds and doing the right things every single morning.
Win the day by noon, right?
Yep.
Question number 2. What is the most admirable trait a person can have?
The most admirable trait is, I would say, following through with what you said you're going to do. Okay, whatever you promise to others, be there, be on time, be present. Okay, and deliver what you promised you would deliver. But of all those things, while you're doing it, pay attention, take notes, look at your clients, ask them questions, and then provide them with what they asked for. Okay, but being truthful to yourself and to others, it all encompasses that. Okay, but I like by being present and giving people what they need. Okay, sometimes you may have to help them understand that what they want isn't really what they need, and especially in real estate, people want stuff that doesn't exist sometimes, and you have to paint that picture for them. That takes time. If you come right out and go, that doesn't exist here, that's not going to go. Let them self-discover it, okay? But, I think being present with people and giving them your honesty.
If you had to change someone's life with one book, which book would you recommend?
The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. I've read a lot of books, as I know you have as well, and we never stop learning. But that's a life-changing book for someone in any profession or just in life. And it's funny because you can take that book, and what the book's whole premise is, for those who don't know, is really its focus. It's about being focused. It's about, not trying to multitask because it can't be done. And when you try to multitask, you usually are doing everything poorly that you're doing. And it's really, to the point that when I get out of the shower, and I'm getting dressed, I go, right now I'm putting on my socks. Now I'm putting on my t-shirt. Now I'm doing this instead of, but that towel's on the floor, I better pick it up and hang it up. That's not what I'm doing right now. Right now is t-shirt time. Right now is lead gen time, to the point that when you get the text message coming through about an inspection that's causing a deal to maybe blow up, there's no real emergencies in real estate. Okay. I can attend to that in 2 hours. What am I doing right now? I ask myself, is that lead gen? No, that's not lead gen. Stay focused on lead gen. Get through my lead generation, then I can deal with that. Okay. But that's the focus it takes to win your morning, to win your day.
What is the legacy that you're trying to leave behind?
Now, when you hear that question, you often go to family first, and I think that's fine. Okay. But from a family standpoint, for my children, because that's what you think of when you hear the word legacy. And I think of my children, but I also think of those that I work with and that I train and that I care for, because they're kind of my work family. So for all of those people, I want them to better themselves every day. I want my children to better themselves every day. I hate watching my kids play video games and sit around for too long doing stuff. And I ask them, and they don't always like what I ask. Is that making you smarter or dumber? And even if my older daughter's watching the Kardashians, I'm like, that doesn't make you smart. And she goes, Dad, But my goal is for them to see what I do and to see the way that I work, and want to model that. And my kids do in many aspects, not in all aspects. They're still teenagers. Okay. But my teammates are on my team for a reason. They see how regimented I am. They see the results that it yields, but they also see that I have fun. We hung out. You see that I have fun, but I work hard so I can play hard. Okay. But the legacy I want to pass on is that by having the right habits, doing the right things, implementing the right systems, no matter what, during hard times, which there almost always hard times that we deal with. 2021, where it was busy as heck for everyone, it still wasn't easy. Writing 13 offers to get one finally accepted was not easy. Okay, the interest rates were just lower. That's what made things more comfortable for a lot of people. Then the market shifted to where we are right now, where it's harder, but it's work. That's why it's called work. And that's what I want the team to see, that work's good. Work is okay. It's what we're doing.
Try again.
Computer's talking. Anyway, so that's really what it boils down to is seeing that smart work, organized work, okay, with systems is what really gets you there in life. And I think a lot of people have seen what I do as well. And I haven't always been good at this. It took coaching, but it's having relationships and nurturing relationships, staying within relation with people, with your clients is so much better than starting over with every transaction. Because people always used to say, I just fired myself. I'm a realtor. Like, no, you didn't. Your client's a friend. Now you stay in touch with them forever. And their friends will send friends, and they will call you every time they want to buy another piece of real estate because you stayed in touch. Okay? So that's another key part of that question is maintaining relationships, because it will always help you in life.
Yeah, and that goes for any like things outside of real estate as well. So if you're not in real estate, don't let it go over your head. That works everywhere. And then final question, for anyone that wants to embark on their walk to wealth today, what is the first step you recommend they take?
Now I know it's a lot of your friends and you're a younger fella, okay? But whatever you do, choose things that you enjoy doing. Choose things you love doing, okay? If you just pick something because I can make a lot of money doing that, that's not going to bring you the happiness you need in life, okay? So choose the things that you enjoy doing and become a subject matter expert in them. I became subject matter experts in things in places I didn't belong in places that people, even when I taught swimming lessons, most people would say, well, you should only teach swimming lessons at the YMCA or a rec center. And I said, why? I live in America. I can do what I want. When I went into this arena of working with doctors and therapists, I wasn't even a physical therapist. I said, why? I can learn the language. I can learn the skills. I can create a solution to a problem and help sell it. Okay. When I went into the industry world, I just said, why not? If I can fill the void that they have and provide them with the solutions, does it matter if I'm an engineer? No, they just want the solution and someone who will speak intelligently to them. And then in real estate, I didn't create anything in real estate. I just put together systems and I work with people who are motivated, and I motivate those people and implement new things that I learned from my friends in the pivot shift community. And I don't create a single thing. I just do it in a structured way. And I recruit other people who want structure in their life. And if they don't want to be structured, they can't be on my team, because that just doesn't yield success. So that's what it boils down to with Tulio and his people.
Structure, man. Tulio, it was a pleasure having you on today. As I said before we hit record, I've been looking forward to this for a while. Thanks again for dropping all the nuggets and just sharing your journey, man. It's something that I feel a lot of people can definitely resonate with, because it's not like you just woke up one day and it happened. It's definitely a big progression, and I loved hearing your story and walking it out for me. So again, thank you once again for hopping on.
Absolutely, John. Thank you for having me, man. Love you, brother. This was great. Thank you.